Greetings everybody, Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another edition of Classic Album War. Today we're going to go all the way back to 1970 to two albums, arguably, who played a big part in the creation of what we later came to know as hard rock and heavy metal. So, February 1970, June of 1970. Released just albums apart. For one band, it was their debut album. For another band, it was actually their fourth studio album, but first album with their brand new singer and bass player. Of course, we're talking about Black Sabbath, self-titled, okay, and Deep Purple in rock. Okay, let's start off, and you know, we've already done some Sabbath versus Purple wars here. We're going to do a few more in the weeks to come, but as most of you already know, my two favorite bands of all time, so you know how difficult these choices are for me. So again, at the end of the show or during the show, weigh in the comments and feedback below, and let us know which is your favorite of these two albums. So, you know, these two albums, both incredible, both legendary, right? Let's dissect each one a little bit here. So, you know, that classic cover, all right, doesn't get much spookier than this, right? So, Black Sabbath, originally called Earth, right? Kind of like a heavy blues band, and eventually decided to take on a sound that would later be known as Doom. But for this album, you know, most people when they first heard this album, it's like, oh my God, that's really, really heavy blues rock, right? Because there are some blues references to these songs, but a lot of distortion and fuzz and long guitar solos and really unique vocals by Ozzy Osbourne, right? Unlike anything we've ever heard before at the time. So what do we got in here? So we got the classic Black Sabbath song kicking things off, all right, which many people chime in as the first ever Doom song ever recorded, right? Probably. You know, you got the thunder and the rain and the church bells and that dun, dun. I mean, doesn't get much better than that, right? Then you got, you know, the Wizard, kind of a cool tune, a lot more up-tempo. Got some harmonica, it's kind of bluesy, right? Then you got, you know, Wasp, Behind the Wall of Sleep, kind of like little medley of things going on there, which leads into basically Geezer Butler's bass solo, and then that eventually moves into NIB, classic Sledgehammer Sabbath riffing right there. Then you got The Wicked World, okay, fantastically constructed long jam with all sorts of different parts, kind of bluesy, kind of jazzy, but very heavy. And then a little bit of Fingers, Sleeping Village, Warning. Of course, you know, Warning is the cover of a Ansley Dunsbar Retaliation track, right? But again, done total Sabbathified here. Really cool stuff. The UK version of the album had a track called Evil Woman, which is another cover. Also done pretty well. Not included on the US version, but if you get the remaster, it's got them all kind of put together there. Kind of nice. A great album, top to bottom. You know, classic debut. Classic, one of the most important debuts of all time because, again, you know, arguably the birth of heavy metal, and certainly Doom right here, but you can also, you know, count Led Zeppelin in that kind of discussion as well as this one. All right, released just a few months later. Again, like I mentioned before, this is the first recording or full-length recording with brand new singer Ian Gillan, who replaced Rod Evans. Okay, and then you got Roger Glover on bass. Both of them come from episode 6. Roger Glover is replacing Nick Simper on bass guitar. So here, this follows shortly on the heels of the Concerto for Group and Orchestra, which was kind of constructed by keyboardist John Lord. All right, that actually came out just before this. That was actually Gillan's kind of big first appearance with the band, right? And Glover as well. So they also recorded that kind of single Hallelujah, which I believe is officially Gillan and Glover's first appearance in the band. All right, but if history serves me correctly, I believe Evans and Simper were actually still in the band at the time when they recorded Hallelujah and had not been notified that their services were no longer needed. Kind of a dick move, yeah, but that's kind of the way things happen, right? So, what about In Rock? A great album. One of my favorites of all time. You know, you got Speed King on here. You got Child in Time. You got Live in Wreck. You know, Child in Time, one of my favorite Purple tunes ever. and just a really cool epic that has a lot of ebbs and flows, right? That wailing vocals, the crazy guitar solo, Hammond organ solo. What else we got on here? Into the Fire. What a heavy tune. More maniacal Gillan vocals. What else have we here? You know, also at this time they recorded the single Black Knight, okay, which is not on the US version of the album. Also put in on the remaster. Great, memorable Purple track. What's so interesting about this album compared to the previous Purple albums is that the band were basically like a psychedelic band early on those first three albums. You know, you could hear little bits of prog seeping through, you know, early prog, proto-prog, whatever you want to call it, little bits of hard rock, but mostly it was kind of pop and psychedelia, a little bit of classical leanings here and there. And then the band just markedly got ultra heavy with this release. This album is just dripping with distorted Hammond organ and raging guitar riffs and solos. Just killer stuff. I mean, geez, Speed King alone, it's like that kicks off the album in a crazy way, right? Announcing the arrival of another heavy rock kind of supergroup here. A lot of good stuff on here. You know, Hard Loving Man, just so many great tunes, top to bottom. A fantastic album. Not the most well-produced album ever. You know, subsequent Purple albums would sound sonically better. This is kind of like a very, you know, kind of like a muddiness to the production, which I kind of dig. But it's like if you listen to it, you know, and I don't think that John Lord was recorded very well as far as like, you know, his sonic output when you were listening to the album. It's like Lord is kind of a little buried here, although his Hammonds are all over the place on here. This is a very strong guitar record, okay? And you can kind of say the same thing about this. You know, neither one of these albums are known for their amazing production values, but it's the songs, right? And just the impact that they've had. So which one do I prefer? Well, this is going to be another one of those kind of pick 'em things here, right? But as much as I love this album, I do, this is one of my favorite albums of all time. So it's gonna nose ahead ever so slightly today. All right. I'm going to give this one a unanimous decision, but it's really close. 115, 113, 115, 114, 115, 114. Okay, narrow margin, but they win. No knockdowns in this fight. Back and forth action all the way, but for me, In Rock just edges it out ever so slightly. It just, you know, when you come down to it, you know, if we were talking about Master Reality or Volume 4, it might even be closer. But, you know, the thing is, this is still one of my favorite albums of all time. And I just don't think there's any Black Sabbath album, as much as I love so many of them so dearly, that can quite top this for me. This album is, you know, and this was a complete game changer. I'm not denying it. But for me personally, what it means to me, I'm going to give the slight edge to the guys on Mount Rushmore here. So anyway, your opinion may differ, and that's fine. There's no right or wrong answer here. We all like what we like and hear things differently. So, but I'm sure there's nobody out there who will deny how important both of these albums are to the history of heavy music. So let us know what you think. Visit us on the web at www.seaoftranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. Of course, we're on the mighty YouTube. Don't touch that dial. We got another classic album work coming up. Couldn't get to one yesterday, but I'm trying to play catch up. So stay tuned. We got a little Led Zeppelin versus The Who coming up. See you real soon. Bye-bye.